Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang Dhammang Sanghang Namasami. It's nice to be with the community again. I've been out of the loop for, I guess, a few weeks now, I guess. A couple of weeks off traveling with my mother, and then past week been in solitude. Very pleasant to be up in the forest and practicing, meditating. As that winter retreat time is always to me it's it's my favorite time of year, because the weather being cool and just the subdued nature of the environment, the community, and the focus on practice and of course, the theme for this winter retreat being the say the protective meditations, but you say just that returning to the roots of meditation and cultivation is such a important basis, foundation for us all. I think that one of the things that's helpful to remind ourselves is that meditation isn't just some kind of technique, some kind of methodology of trying to quiet the mind, but it's a much, especially from, say, the Buddhist perspective, and certainly my own exposure to within the Thai tradition, Ajahn Chah, the forest tradition in general, a broader tradition of say, teachers that I have found influential. Ajahn Buddhadasa, Prabhayutto. It's much more the broader sense of bhavana, which can be translated as meditation, but it's also this sense of cultivation or development, and developing ourselves as human beings, and learning how to use the tools of cultivation. So those protective meditations are really important tools within a whole range of tools and practices and perspectives that the Buddha gives, and they're really helpful in the sense of recognizing that what, say, within those protective meditations, one of the, say, of Buddhanusati, Metta Bhavana, Asubha, Kammatthana, and the Maranasati, that they're balances, they're ways of balancing the mind, balancing the heart, balancing how we approach this cultivation and development of the heart, so that not to lose sight of that sense of balance, that we're, learning how to balance the different qualities and faculties, and lifting up different qualities at different times and different reflections at different times, so that there is a sense of balance and say what Ajahn Chah would oftentimes refer to as kind of a just right quality, that the and it isn't as if there's one particular technique, one particular right answer for the of what's absolutely right in accord with the Dhamma, but it's more what's just right. Similarly, just like the Buddha's path to the ending of suffering is the Noble Eightfold Path, and it's not so much that because it, say, especially in the English language, then it's right view, right intention, right speech, right livelihood. Everything has to be right, and you certainly wouldn't want to be wrong, and then you really, we often try so hard to be right, to get it right, to practice right, and it's not so much right as some absolute thing, but it's more like just right. How to balance, how there's an evenness of perspective, evenness of application, and evenness of approach, that is both the catalyst for seeing, realizing Dhamma, and the essence of seeing and realizing the Dhamma. So this paying attention to balance, and then using these aspects of recollection of the Buddha, not in some kind of trying to get this, say, the story of the Buddha or the example of the Buddha, and try to embody some kind of hagiographical one-upmanship or something, and get it everything absolutely right. It's more the example of the Buddha of being an awakened being who is completely at peace and at ease with the world, so that's our aspiration, and trying to remind ourselves to do that, and trying to temper the various impulses that we have to clouding the mind and clouding the heart. That sense of the opportunity that we have to experience, or this is a here and now Dhamma, and to be able to it's always present, not bound by time, and that to give ourselves the opportunity to not through our own obsessions and obstacles, misconceiving what the truth actually is. It's just as the Buddha as a reminder. So it's Buddha Nusati, and the metta bhavana as a means of balancing and laying the foundation for a sense of well-being. Sometimes, especially in retreat periods, we can, and it is important to put forth effort, but it's also important that the effort we put in is not, because sometimes we can just be so almost tyrannical and overbearing with ourselves, and there's not much loving kindness there, and or we can try to use loving kindness like a club to annihilate aversion. It's all of a sudden it changes its tone, and really that sense of loving kindness as a. I think one of the things is I say all of these aspects of balance are looking at what can we abandon, what can we relinquish, as opposed to what can we gain, what can we get, what can we achieve, what can we become. And it's more the essence of the practice, and the essence of the path is really that of relinquishment, of letting go, and that sense of where one of the sayings that the Buddha gave, and saying that the kind of the essence, or the heart of the teachings, and the simplest way to describe Sambe Dhamma Nalanga Biniwe Saya. That is the whole teaching. All Dhammas are not to be clung to, and nothing whatsoever should be clung to. And sort of seeing, what can we relinquish? What can we let go? What are we holding on to that is creating suffering? It's creating a sense of dis-ease. So that relinquishment, that non-clinging, that letting go, is really an act of kindness, sense of of metta, recognizing that whatever we cling to, whatever we hold on to, whatever we're obsessing over, is an expression of dukkha, and it's worth just kindly giving it up and not holding on to it. So there's a sense of metta, and it's how we abandon our obstacles, and so it's, similarly that metta being a doorway into the Brahma-viharas, and that one, the Buddha talks of that as being that cultivation of metta as a means of relinquishing, abandoning ill will, the cultivation of compassion as a means of abandoning cruelty, and again, let's say one doesn't. That cruelty is can be, it sounds really, so somehow that cruelty is quite a hard word, but I mean if you think in terms of some of the thoughts and feelings that we have, towards other beings, just being, either insensitive or intolerant or exasperated, and then there is that edge of a lack of compassion, a lack of and another word that is used for compassion is a anukalpa, and that literally means to tremble with, or the heart trembles in response to, and even in the say, like in the request for the Dhamma teachings, anukampi mang pachang. It's teaching out of compassion. It's so that, but that anukampa is in that sense, that trembling with, to feel, to experience, to have a sensitivity to each other within this human condition, and having an empathetic response, and to ourselves. Again, sometimes some of the if we really listen to ourselves when we just get frustrated and irritated with ourselves, think, oh, where's the compassion? And so just that sense of it is a doorway of metta, into compassion, into mudita. And the Buddha says, the cultivation of mudita, of sympathetic joy, for abandoning discontent. And I find that really quite touching, or say, realizing that when we experience a sense of joy and have a sense of delight in the world around us and the goodness of others and the goodness of ourselves, and when we really do, that discontent is undermined. And so much of our our life is driven by discontent seeking some kind of gratification. And, of course, it can be the gratification in distraction and sense pleasure and excitement and sensually stimulating things. But it's also, say that discontent is displayed in that desire for becoming, being, trying to establish some kind of identity, a solid me that is somehow secure or safe or somehow not just not being entangled in its insecurities. So we're always looking for a sense of self or identity or becoming, and so it's driven by discontent, and then we keep trying to prop something up, and of course that's the whole illusion of self and self identity is that somehow it's going to be satisfying, and of course it's not. It isn't. So then we keep looking for something else, and we keep entangling ourselves in discontent. So that looking at the roots of discontent. And how the Buddha pinpoints that sense of the mudita, that sense of joy, as a basis for abandoning discontent, and I think especially as if we've grown up within a kind of Western philosophical and religious framework, and feeling too much joy is pretty suspicious. I mean, that's really that's the harbinger of some disaster, or you're not worthy of it, and that's but it's just this simple kind of a stepping back from that the I making and mind making is an avenue of opening doors to a sense of joy and a feeling of contentment. So there's this balancing. Well, how are we balancing our different aspects of being and our training? Equanimity is the and the Buddha says that it's for develop equanimity for the overcoming of aversion. And at first, I remember thinking about reflecting, well, I thought loving kindness gets rid of ill will. Why is it sort of repeated again with? But it's I think that sense of maybe aversion is a lot broader, maybe, and as a term, and certainly the equanimity is an evenness of response to the to the world and to the self. And so that sense of equanimity is such a like a mature response to the world and the sense of self. And because, the reality is, there's a lot to be irritated by in the world. and you can have all the logic and all the appropriate kind of reasons for that, but equanimity and evenness and steadiness or solidity, stability, is such a much more mature response to this human condition, as opposed to aversion, and oftentimes aversion is driven from fear, and so that you want what we're that fear, what we're either confused by or uncertain around or we're not sure about, and then there's that sense of unease, of it's a bit anxious, and so then we drift to aversion really quickly. It's just irritating, and equanimity is you can hold. There's a big enough space in the heart to hold it, so that this is a balancing of our faculty. So this isn't a really. These are very uplifting qualities. It's like buddhanusati, metta, and then the aspect of asubha and maranasati, contemplation of death, are more, maybe more sobering or more bringing a sense of urgency, and there's appropriate times for that. And it's how do we modulate the mind, the impulses of the heart that go to, yes, I want that, yes, isn't it? And going to gratification, going to stimulation, going to fascination. And so then they okay, look, let's dial this back a bit and not get so entangled. And so that sense of the paying attention to the unattractive nature of the body, and that. Hair of the head, hair of the body, nails, teeth, and skin. 32 parts of the body, those are all, when one contemplates them, that's, okay, this is the reality of this physical embodiment, and without it, we have to rely on the body. And it's amazing that it actually works. How just on a daily basis. I mean, if you had to think through and oversee how you digest food, I mean, it's a real process. But thinking in terms of just the getting fascinated or entangled in proliferations that are based in greed or desire or fantasies of getting or gaining. Those are it's helpful. okay, what is this basis of this? It's back to the body, hair of the head, hair of the body, nails, teeth, and skin. Keeps it grounded, keeps it settled. And of course, it's when we reflect in those ways, it helps to balance and bring the mind back to a sense of having an anchor that isn't just caught in the impulse of desire or the immediate impression of something. You're looking behind the veil of assumption, because that's the way the whole desire process works. It doesn't need to. It doesn't want to look too closely at things, because that would, one, it gets complicated. Two, it gets like too much information. So then, but we want to keep it just so it's that illusion is propped up. But then also there's a sense, this physical condition, this human condition, is bound by death. Maranasati, and this is a, and there is a certain sobering quality to that. I mean, you realize, yes, that the uncertainty. We all know, everybody knows that they're going to die. Everybody will agree to that. But because it's uncertain when, nobody knows when, then it's easy to kind of disregard it and to act as if it's somehow never going to happen. And of course, it's a universal occurrence. It doesn't really matter whether one's young or old, whether one is wealthy or impoverished, whether one is whatever race, gender, educational background, whatever. Death comes for all of us, and that's it's a fundamental reality. And there's, and say, just like this evening, we chanted for the Tanjukunte Buttiwitet, and he's just he was a really, really good monk and a really good human being, and I got to meet him on many occasions, and as I'd say a monk who is the head of the Sangha administration here in America for the Thai Sangha, then it sounds like a big title, and it is, and he's took on a lot of responsibilities, but he was just incredibly humble and a really genuine person. I remember the first time he came here, I'd met him before at a ceremony, and I was in the background. He was, and because he's the head of everything, but then he expressed, and I think it was the following year or so, he expressed the interest to come up and visit here, and so. And I'm, kind of fretting of how to receive this big monk properly, and you know, in those days, that was 10, 15 years ago, and we just didn't have much, and I said, well, how do I set up for the meal for you? Because you have a table. Because especially as say a city monk and a scholarly monk, then he's not used to forced tradition and eating in a bowl, sitting on the floor, and I started talking to. Ajahn Mahaprasad was there, sort of said, well, should we set up a table and have him get all the sort of dishes and bowls and whatnot for him, and he heard me talking, and he said, no, just give me a bowl from your stores, and I'll just join you, and I want to see how you do it. And so it was really sweet, and that was his mode of being, and similarly, one time he showed up at, and I didn't know he was going to be there. He showed up at Wat Pah Pong at Ajahn Chah's monastery for on the day of the big circumambulation during the Ajahn Chah commemoration ceremonies. That was 3-4 years ago. And he just sort of showed up with a couple other monks, and nobody quite knew who he was, and so he was just plugging in, and then and following along, and then I saw him, and I came up and started looking after him and getting him organized, and he was just. He wasn't expecting anything. He just wanted to be there and see and pay his respects to Ajahn Chah. It was really, he just was a really good example of living a monastic life for the Dhamma, and not for the titles, not for the perks or whatever, just for the Dhamma. And I think for all of us, it's just that's so important. To that yes, there is this human condition. There are aspects of praise and blame, gain and loss, all the worldly conditions. But this Dhamma is for relinquishment. This Dhamma is for abandonment. This Dhamma is for letting go. And that is its flavor. That's its taste. That taste of relinquishment. And so that this sense of these, of course, balancing, all the different kind of impulses and perspectives and views and complications of our own hearts and minds, but coming back to the Dhamma as a basis for that balance, and of course the flavor is relinquishment, but the flavor is also that freedom from suffering, freedom from dis-ease, freedom from discontent. So that to be in our practice paying attention to that edge of how do we experience the poles of the mind, the poles of the heart. How do we balance it? And how do we pay attention to just that relinquishment, letting go? letting go of that program of that I and me and mine, because that's the essence, that's the heart of the suffering. And it's not a pushing away, it's not a negation, because that's another element of suffering. It is a clear seeing, clear knowing, and attending to balance, attending to this just right quality of the Dhamma. So I'll offer that for reflection this evening.